Had it be. All right, I'm going to try this again. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 2025 meeting of the 24-25 school year. I will call this meeting to order, and I will read the acknowledgement of our local Indigenous community. I see we have our district principal of Indigenous education joining us tonight. She's very familiar with this. We acknowledge that the Abbotsford School District is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Sumas First Nation and Mathqui First Nation. With this, we respect the long-standing relationships that Indigenous nations have to this land, as they are the original caretakers. Do you want to just take a moment to reflect on that? We're going to bring up O Canada. Yes. So, please rise.
Oh, here we go.
Our home and native land, true to patron love, in all of us command, with blooming hearts we sing, the true north strong and free.
All right, there's a few bits of business before we get to the rest of the business. So I would like a mover of the
So
agenda.
moved, Peterson.
Moved by Peterson, seconded by Roque. We're going to call up the voting buttons. You'll see it on the screen, I think. There we go. Fabulous. Approval of the minutes is our next, trustee Roque.
Yeah, my screen's locked up here, so give me a minute. I can see
We
the
can't
agenda.
show you if everybody was in favor until we see.
Trustee Rowe,
Yeah, it's.
should I
working.
indicate that you're
Would
in
you-
favor?
If you could, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And sometimes our secretary treasurer takes the liberty of voting on our behalf. We're never sure exactly how that looks. All right. So now we'll move to the minutes of the public meeting held March 11th.
So moved, Ray.
Trustee Rai, seconded by
seconded.
Kandarajwan. Voting buttons, please. And we have several items in consent. Would someone like to?
Move to approve, Peterson.
Moved by Peterson, seconded by Rai. Comments or questions? No? Trustee White, you had requested that one of these items be moved.
Yeah, March 8th.
March the 8th, general record be, was that done? I haven't looked
We
ahead.
didn't have time.
We did not have time to do that. We can.
Or I could just say it now.
You could, typically, we don't comment on consent items. However, since we were unable to sever a particular set of records, I will allow Trustee White to share his comment.
Yeah, thank you. As in regard to the March 8th minutes, although I recognize the need for sometimes to go in camera as the board, I do think it should be used sparingly, and when it is, I do think a fulsome record of what we talked about as much as possible should be given to the public. I don't think that threshold was met here. There isn't really any information in there, so I don't think it meets what I think the public expects in terms of transparency from us. So I would not like to vote for this for that reason.
So you'll be voting against? Thank you. Okay, all right. Voting buttons have been put up. Trustee Veluk, you're still having troubles voting?
Nope, I'm up now.
You're up, okay. All right. Trustee White. Excellent, okay, thank you, it's passed. So now we move on to that part of the agenda where this is one of my favorite parts of the agenda, most of us, where there's school presentations. This is called delegations, presentations, and acknowledgements. And a few months ago, I decided to take a liberty of having some acknowledgements of work that is done in our district, not necessarily by name, but by position or whatever that might look like, because we have so many good people who do so much good work in our district, and we can't name them all. We have 3,000 employees. But at the end of our agenda, we do have time to reflect on the activities that the board has undertaken as a group. Today, I've taken a liberty that I think is an important one, that we acknowledge the work and the parting of Secretary Treasurer Ray Veluk. And he's going to be very upset with me because he thought he was done. He's not. We do have a special presentation, which will be done at the end of this particular group. But I have invited members of the school community, district community, to say a few words. So for our first speaker, Ryan Colbert is a principal in the district. He is also the president of the Abbotsford Principal Vice Principals Association. If you could please come here and turn the microphone on, please.
Which one, the right one?
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you, Mr. Colbert.
you're welcome. Thank you for having me. Good evening, everyone. Here to say a few words about Ray. Board Chair Wilson said, my name is Ryan Colbert. I'm the president of the Abbotsford Principal and Vice Principals Association, and also of principal of Ray Veluk Elementary. I'm here this evening on behalf of our executive and our members to simply say thank you, Ray, for all your hard work and unwavering support of principals and vice principals in our district. Regardless of the challenges faced by our district, Ray remained calm, measured, and focused on what needed to be done. During times when tough decisions had to be made, we knew that every decision, no matter what, how big or small, was made with the long-term health of the school district in mind. A prime example, and one of our favorites as principals and vice principals, was during COVID-19, when tough decisions had to be made amidst unprecedented restrictions and numerous uncertainties. When we got the memo that we said we weren't even allowed to buy a pencil without Ray's approval. Principals and vice principals needed permission for that, but as history would suggest, in Ray, we trusted. Ray was more than just a careful steward of our finances while in the Abbotsford School District. He also knew how to have fun and take the odd joke from here and there, especially on the golf course. During our annual leadership conference, I had the pleasure of organizing the golf tournament around Ray Veluk because he was just so darn good at golf. This accomplished golfer was highly sought after as a teammate, but by all, so much that I had to adjust the tournament and fix it a little bit just to ensure his group didn't win every year. Not by Ray's, that's supposed to be humorous. Not by Ray's wishes, but due to the high demand for everyone wanting to play with him to win the coveted trophy. Ray was always, however, first to tell me, I will put me with whoever, I just want to have fun. Ray, you've brought wisdom, stability, and more than a few laughs to the school district. On behalf of the entire APVPA, we thank you for your leadership and partnership and always keeping in mind what was best for the students. We wish you all the best in whatever comes next. We hope that means less budget meetings, which probably might not happen, but also more time on the fairways. Thank you, Ray. All the best.
Thank you for those very kind words. Next, I would like to invite the president of the Abbotsford Teachers Union, Doug Smullen, to say a few words.
Well,
He promised they'd be kind.
I'm wondering if I should have come first and then. No. My speech is only about half an hour long. No, I'm kidding. Ray and I have worked together for well over a decade on many items, most of which we found an answer at the end, maybe not fully in agreement, but I think that one can come to appreciate what Ray has done for this district, and certainly for the students of this district in keeping things running in a marvelous way. And we, the teachers of Abbotsford, certainly will thank you for that and for all the work that you've done for this district throughout your time here. I can only imagine and speculate what you'll be doing with the budget shortfalls in the next district that you end up in. I'm sure they're looking forward to your marked pen, let's say. You and I have sat across the table at bargaining a number of sessions, and I think I wish them and you all of the joy that that will bring if you take on that role with them as well. But on behalf of the teachers of Abbotsford, I want to thank you for all the work that you've put into this district in keeping us afloat all these years that you've been here. So thank you very much, Ray.
Next up, I'd like to call District Parent Advisory Council Chair Shannon Rose.
Thank you. Ray, on behalf of all the parents in the district, and especially the DPAC executive, we just want to thank you for everything you've done for us over the past, myself, 9 years, so thank you. We always knew that when it came to budget crunches and trying to find a balanced budget, that the students would be our top priority and they would never suffer. So we thank you for that. So for all the parents in the district, we wish you the best of luck in your next district. And thank you so much for everything.
And Mr. Veluk, if you thought that was it, you're wrong. I'd like to, sorry, he's not very good about this. Allison, no, is there someone here from Teamsters? There's somebody here from Teamsters. Okay. Allison, you're up. Oh, Carissa and Beth.
Now?
You can start, I will introduce this with just a little bit of piece of information here. The Board of Education has provided many thanks and kudos and appreciation, all the things to Mr. Veluk prior to his leaving the district. He has been here almost 16 years, and he's one of the unsung heroes in the Indigenous Education Department. And he puts a lot of time, energy, and effort, and the time. He always has the time for the Indigenous Education Department. And we asked Allison, our district principal of Indigenous Education, Allison Gardner, if she could come up with something from the board and from the Indigenous Education Department and from the district to honor you for the work that you've done for them. Now, I may have stolen some for thunder, but I did want to actually just frame that for folks. Allison Gardner.
So, Ray, we have, like Shirley says, we've really appreciated the support that the Indigenous Education Department receives, including letting us, keeping that targeted funding really careful for Indigenous students. So don't worry, none of the cost of this piece was taken from targeted funding. I'm just gonna, can I talk and hold? So Raphael, or Ray Silver from Sumas First Nation, who is actually carved behind you there, created a spindle whirl for you. And I'll stand here for a photo of Nathan, but then I do want to show it to you too.
Ray, if you could just go accept that, you can.
I'll talk about for 1 second first, just because it talks about you too. So these are two ravens talking to each other, and you've got the center of the spindle whirl is the sun with a harvest moon here. Spindle whirls were and are traditionally used to take the fibers from mountain goat wool or woolly dog wool to spin wool for weaving blankets later on. Blankets are very valuable, as is the whole process, and you bring a lot of value to wherever you go. So this is for you to take with you.
He's going to come over.
He's gonna come over.
Take that, Siri.
I know. Ray, would you like to say anything? He's going to say no, but Ray, say something. Aside that he's annoyed at me. Now he has nothing to say.
Well, I'm glad all these things were said before I did the budget presentation. So you can't take them back. No, thank you all so much for the kind words. It's been a really wonderful 15 years in Abbotsford. I've really enjoyed the working relationships that I've made with staff and trustees over that time. A lot of tough times along the way, but a lot of good times along the way as well. So I've had some opportunities to reflect on those in the last couple of weeks. So just really appreciate all the kind words and wish nothing but the best for this district. And I think you'll continue to be one of the top performing school districts in this province. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So, Trustee Rai, yeah.
Can I move a motion to reject his resignation letter?
Oh, I'll second that.
No, thank you, Ray.
Thank you. Yes, would anybody at the table like to make any, we've said lots to Ray, to ST Veluk, but I think if the board would like to make any comments in public, I think that that's appropriate. Trustee Kandarajwan.
Thank you, Chair Wilson. I have to say, being in my first term as a parent, I didn't really know what the board office did and how budgets worked. But being in my first term, especially the first year, Ray, you were so good about, or Secretary Treasurer, explaining to me how the budgets worked. And just, you're so good at what you do, and I'm so thankful to be here to learn where did Abbotsford come from when it comes to district and how we've grown, and just to see how you grew in the last 15 years. I'm so honored to be in this space with you, that to see what you've done, so thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Rauk?
Yeah, I just would like to reflect on the job that Ray and Ray's department does is sort of one of these hidden jobs, you know, that we all do in our households. We manage our money wisely and we make tough decisions to make sure that we can sort of maintain a steady ship, and that's something that Ray and Ray's department has done really well. And not always popular decisions, right? But they're good decisions for the long term. And Ray, you've built a really good team beneath you as well, and I know that you feel like that's a very important reason, or a very important thing to leave the district with. So thank you for doing that good job. And the comment made earlier about Ray spending time on the golf tees and so on, I don't think that's going to happen, because he's moving from a $250,000 budget
That's
to
very small.
$250 million budget to an over $1 billion budget in Surrey. So he'll have his hands full. Yeah. Thanks, Ray.
Anyone else? I'll just close. Oh,
Oh, gosh, I've said it all, Ray. No.
no, you're good?
I've said it. Nobody's agreed to my motion, so.
Well, I did, but I can't. Just some. I'm Ray's longest serving trustee. Actually, we met in 2006, before he came to this district, and kind of followed his journey from Mission to Chilliwack to Abbotsford. And it was a very long process for ST Veluk to arrive in our district, but was it ever worth it? Because he has given us so much of his time, his energy, the stability and sustainability that this district needs. And he is going to a much larger district. We will miss him. His last day is Thursday, so if you feel so inclined to send him a message to tell him how upset I am, that's fine. But I just wanted, on behalf of the board, to say thank you for service well done. Okay. So now we have other parts. I hope those who've been presenting some words, kind words for Mr. Veluk, that you're welcome to stay. We do have student presentations, and I will turn this over to Mr. Nosek, the superintendent.
Thank you, Chair Wilson, and yeah, for the record, let me also state that we're really going to miss you, Ray, and thank you so much for your service and all the tremendous leadership and support that you've shown me in my time as superintendent, so thank you for that. Very, very excited to have Godson Elementary School here with us. I am going to invite Principal Baruda to come up and introduce his team. And trustees, I believe we're going to learn a little bit tonight about X Block. Does that sound right?
Sounds right.
Perfect. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Nosek, and congratulations again, Ray. Best wishes. Thank you for having us here tonight. As Mr. Nosek said, I'm the principal of Godson Elementary, and joining me tonight are 4 individuals. I'll invite them to the front here, or just stand up and say hi. We have 2 students with us, one from grade 5, that's Harteg. He'll be speaking in a few moments, and his younger brother, Jajar, in grade 2, about a special program that we offer throughout the school. We're in our 2nd year of it now, but before that we have Vice Principal Joe Frew, as well as our LSS teacher, Mr. Brett Taylor. So we have a short presentation before the 2 young men join us. We have a program called X Block that runs 3 of 4 Fridays, where the entire school, all 384 kids, do a preferred activity, and it's a mixture of kindergarten students all the way up to grade 5, engaging in various activities throughout the building. And this way they get a chance to do community building, and they get to interact with teachers that aren't at their grade level that they'll be working with over the next 4 or 5 years. And so it really helps to build a sense of community, get students running to school, which of course that's what we want in the first place, a place where they're engaged and connected, right? So we have a short presentation on the PowerPoint, and then I'll invite the 2 students up to talk about their level of engagement. So it's like I said, it's 3 Fridays of the month. The children are given tickets, and so they're all accounted for. That's the main thing when you have that many students kind of going throughout the building for a half an hour before lunch, so from 11:40 to 12:10, and then they're back in their classes ready for dismissal from their teacher. So I'll invite Jajar and Harteg to the front to say a few words, a little bit more in-depth detail about what they do during X Block, and they have a little question and answer for you.
So what I've done is I've wrote some questions down, and they're going to answer those questions. So when you speak, ask the question first, and then answer. Okay? Good to go.
What activity did you choose and why? I chose Big Gym because it is fun to play baseball. Baseball is fun to hit the ball, and I like the designs on the ball. Did you make any new friends? How did it go? I did make a new friend. It went good. We played soccer together. How did this activity make you feel? It made me feel really happy. What activity did you choose and why? I chose soccer and chess because soccer is my favorite sport and chess is a very fun board game. How did this activity make you feel? It made it a bit challenging but fun. Did you learn anything new about yourself or your classmates? I learned I did not like chess in the beginning, but after I tried it again, I really enjoyed it.
And so one of the things that we did is I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Taylor, who collected some data at our school, interviewed all the kids about is it working? Go ahead, Mr. Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fruce. So what we kind of did when we were talking about this is the idea that's great that the kids are telling us these things one-on-one and that sort of thing, but we wanted some larger scale data. So I created a really simple 5-point little questionnaire that went out to about 250 kids within the school with approachable language at their grade level of how much they enjoy X Block and what their perceived success is going to be at it. So as you can see on the bar graph, it's overwhelming that they're having a good time with us, right? We try to give a variety of activities, and we try to, within reason, allow the kids to pick different activities week to week. So if you enjoy playing basketball, that's fantastic, but hey, have you ever tried playing volleyball instead? Still a ball sport, maybe you'll like it, those sorts of things. And like on the list that was up before, we have had, I would say, easily 40 to 50 different activities throughout the course of the year. Basketball, volleyball, open gym, board games. We've had baskets set up for disc golf, like frisbee golf. We've had all sorts of different things where the kids can pick and choose what they think they are going to be successful at. And then sometimes, if they're really brave, they can push themselves out of their comfort zone and go, I don't know that grade 5 teacher as a grade 1 student, but I think I want to get to know them. They look pretty cool. So it allows them to get to know the different staff. So when they show up, in a year, 2 years, wherever, that they know this adult and that adult is already safe for them. So it really creates a really safe place for them. And because of that, we've seen immense success with our students in terms of their self-regulation during the activities, their just self-perception. I was fantastic at that. Or like the boys just said, I wasn't unsure of it to start. It was hard, but hey, I persevered, and it was actually pretty awesome in the end. So we put that out there to all of the divisions, and the bars are pretty self-explanatory. The kids loved it. So, 90% of the students either I enjoyed a lot or like I love it. So it's a really, really successful thing that we've been doing for a little while now. So with that being said, thanks, Mr. Frew.
Yep. Thank you very much, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. And then just to conclude, we do have an SEL goal, which contributes, the XBlock contributes to the development of our social emotional learning goal. And the key component that Mr. Taylor just touched upon was that the students all get to know the various teachers throughout the building. So if we have to have interactions today, if we have to do some minor course corrections or holding each other accountable, they've had interactions with those teachers, so they're not a stranger, and there's a lot more acceptance and understanding, both on the part of the student and the teacher in terms of school-wide expectations. So we've done it for 2 years, and I will say in the 2 years we've been running it, three Wednesdays a month, Fridays a month, pardon me, we've had no behavioral challenges from anyone throughout those 2 years. So it's been quite successful. That's it for us.
Thank you, Mr. Bruda. Could you bring the two students back up, please? Mic on, please. You can stay pretty close. It's okay. We don't bite. I promise. However, the trustees around the table like to ask questions when you make a presentation, or sometimes just make a comment. So I'm going to open it up to the table, and the first I saw was trustee Rai, then I saw trustee Veluk.
Thank you. So you really enjoy. You really enjoy it. What out of those? There was about 11 or 12 things there, but your teacher said there's about 50 things. So what all have you tried, and what was your best out of, like, basketball, volleyball, or golf, or which one was, like, for both of you individually? Which one was your best?
I think big gym.
Sorry.
Big gym.
Okay.
Big gym?
Big gym. Oh, okay. Good.
Soccer.
Soccer. Okay. Good. So, like, are older people like us invited as well, or not really? No.
No.
Thank you. Thank you. Not invited. Okay. Thank you so much. Not allowed to be. Not even the big gym. No. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Veluk, and then
Get you in there and have dodgeball.
Yes, definitely.
trustee Veluk, trustee Kandaraj one.
I'd say based on the video, some of us who get hurt in that gym, there those balls were flying. Yeah. So I just have one question. I'm looking at the shirts you two are wearing, and I'm wondering, Lando Norris or Max Verstappen, who's going to win the championship this year?
Not sure.
You're not sure, huh? Okay. Pretty soon they'll have go-karts maybe at the school. Hey. Nice to hear
Thank
about
you.
your program.
Trustee Kandaraj one.
Thank you, Chair Wilson. Thank you to the students for being up here. I know it takes courage to be up and speak in front of your parents and staff and teachers and all of us. I have a question and a comment. My first question is, out of all those activities that you tried, what was something new that you did?
I think from big gym, I never played baseball, but I tried it and it was really fun.
Okay.
I never played basketball in big gym.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And my comment is, I was your liaison trustee last year, and I really appreciated coming to Godson, and I know all of the nuances and the high needs in that school. And being an educator and coming from early childhood, I appreciate the innovation for you creating a space for your students for curiosity and connection. So thank you.
Any other comments? Trustee Peterson?
Thank you. Isn't it great to be able to play and learn at the same time? You know, I mean, there's a lot of research that says that we should be doing a lot more of that. So that's kind of neat. I want to thank the principal, vice principal, all the teachers, because you've obviously bought into this. It's good for kids to be doing this, and I would encourage you to keep going. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah. So, two things. One, I want to thank all those people behind you that support you. So that's your principal and your vice principal. So Mr. Baruda, Mr. Frew, Mr. Taylor, who's back there, and also your families, because you get to do this because your families support you. And we appreciate the family support that you get to be able to do this and that your school gets as well. So thank you for that. As a little token of appreciation, Trustee Peterson has something to say thank you. He is your school liaison.
Liaison to your school, and to say thank you for sharing about the program. And again, I want you to invite Trustee Rai and get all your buddies and give them all a ball, okay? All right, thank you. Thank you for sharing with us. That's for you.
Thank you.
That's for you.
You need to turn and have a smile for the
yes,
camera. There's a couple
we're
cameras
on
here.
camera. All right, I'm going to stand in the middle here.
Our communications manager, senior
All right,
manager,
thank
is
you.
not here this evening, so we have other stand-ins taking photo for us. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. Back over to the superintendent.
Thank you very much, Godson. Next up, we have Asia Sumas. I'm going to ask Principal Karen Bennett to come up and introduce her team. And we're going to learn a little bit tonight about, well, I'll just say about a collaboration map.
Correct, yes. First of all, thank you very much to Godson. We do something very similar except without the dodgeball. Dodgeball is not allowed in my school. I have a metal plate in my leg because of dodgeball, so that is not going to happen anymore. Anyways, thank you very much for having us. I am the very proud principal of Asia Sumas. I have with me my vice principal, Julie Wilms. We have our learning commons teacher, Heather Beckett, and our secondary teacher, there she is, Anna Horner behind us. We also have brought 2 students with us. We brought Yvette from grade 10, and we brought Kayla from grade 7. And we are going to show you a project that we're working on. At our school, we believe in collaboration. We work really hard. Mrs. Beckett is probably the person who you need to have on your staff to make this happen. She has the ideas, she has the means, and she really gets behind it to make this happen. So we, Julie and I, get to stand and hold a very large prop that we brought that I thank you, Carissa, for letting me do this. But I think it's really important to see it. And then I think we're going to have Kayla and Yvette are going to come up and do some descriptions, as well as Mrs. Beckett's going to start us. So there we go. Great to do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thanks for having us here. We're excited to share our project with you. Why we chose this is because we feel like it really encapsulates the spirit of collaboration, and as well as arts integration that is kind of really foundational in our program. We're a 6 to 12 building, and all of our students from grade 6 to 12 are contributing work to this project. So the idea, originally Yvette will come and speak to it, but as you can see from the initial slide, we really feel like it's important to have things ongoing that are, renewing our respectful relationships with Indigenous communities, which is as part of the our commitment to welcoming, just having communities that work together. So it is, Yvette, are you good? Do you want to jump right in? Excellent. Yvette Valcourt.
Okay, yeah. Oh, we're going up. Yep, we're going up.
Be careful.
Oh, yeah. I can. Wow. So this lives in our foyer right now, and she's going to explain to exactly what's going on.
Is this gonna? I pushed the wrong one.
The worn out one. The one that's worn out. Yeah. There you go.
There we go. So we have a photo of the map as well. We weren't sure that we were going to be able to bring the actual map, but you can see it's worth having it here. This is what we've got. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, I am Yvette Valcourt. I'm in grade 10 and I'm a transfer. It is my 3rd year at Asia Sumas. And I feel very blessed to say I'm at this school as it is very culturally involved, which is the entire reason I transferred. And hearing about this map project made me extremely inspired, and I just immediately got right to work, and my class was all super involved. Everyone was really excited and everybody took a part. And we try our best to make sure all of our grades have a chance to add something to this map, which additions are going on more and more throughout the year. And what my class personally did last semester was we painted the cultural regions of Canada, which consists of the Northwest Coast, which is in the green, the Plateau in red, the Great Plains in yellow, the Arctic in almost a whitish blue, the Subarctic in purple, and then the Eastern Woodlands in brown, so that we could really represent all of these different cultures and how their lands can be so different, but they're all also so connected, and they all bleed into each other and they share the same culture, and it's really welcoming. We also are planning on soon identifying ceded and unceded territories, possibly using stars, which should be our next contribution. And because we're going to have treaties from 1 to 11 on there, and so that we can really recognize unceded territories and ceded territories, and some that are kind of right on the fence. And I believe I can say with full confidence that our school is very proud of this project, and this is something that keeps us going. And as an Indigenous student myself, I am very proud to be able to contribute to this conversation and to be able to help present.
So we're going to speak to one of the projects that my social studies class took on, and Yvette was also in this class. So in English First People's first semester, their class worked on the land area and did research behind that. And then in social studies this semester, as we were diving into unpacking more of the impact of residential schools, students researched specific residential schools in groups, learned about the context, the impact, the number of students that attended those schools, and the experiences that happened at those schools. And from that created a stamp. So as you can see on the picture on the screen there, it's a zoom in on kind of our little legend on the side here that shows some of the residential schools. It's actually the ones that my class looked at last semester. We haven't added the new ones onto the legend there. But they created a stamp. So they took this rubber material and drew out their residential school in a small size, carved it away, and then we worked together to find the location on the map and stamp their stamp right there.
I think the next slide shows that.
Yes.
Oh, no, this one.
So you can see we've got St. Mary's represented here on our legend on the first picture, which is one of our closer residential schools just across the bridge over in Mission. And then you can see its placement on the actual map itself with that zoomed in picture, the second one there. Do you want to speak to the experience with this?
I was away for when we were making the stamps, but I was there when we were actually doing the research, and I really appreciate Mrs. Horner's take on doing these projects and finding a way to make it not exactly relatable, but easy to connect to, and something easy to go down the rabbit hole with. Because one source leads to another, and then next thing you know, you're in the entire history about whatever residential school you've picked.
Can I just add to that? So they had an essay that they were supposed to write as a component to this, and Yvette had trouble narrowing it down and ended up writing 3 essays for me. So got really into looking at the nuance of the history. So on our map as well, we noted the residential schools. We noted all the residential schools in Canada, but as my classes are quite small, we are a nice small school, and I only had 2 social studies classes, we couldn't take on all of them. So with all the remaining schools on the map that didn't have a stamp created for them, we acknowledged those locations with an orange ribbon. So we collaborated with one of our Indigenous support workers and made sure that was the right way to go with that. So yeah, that's our project.
Excellent. And then the next piece, I took these pictures, as I said, I'm sorry, they're a little blurry. I took them when I thought we weren't going to be able to bring them out. This was a grade 7 contribution, and we have another student, Kayla Gardner, here to talk a little bit about this project for the grade 7s.
Hi, I'm Kayla Gardner from grade 7, and what my class did, or grade did, is we took one of those pictures and we did incorporated digital media arts by drawing our Canadian national animals that we picked. And on the inside, you will see that we have printed out the digital media arts we did. And we also incorporated French and described our Canadian animals with how we thought we can see them. And we also wrote on how our animals connected to the Indigenous community and how they brought to the, let's say, table.
With the presentation of them on there, the Arctic animals in the north, the polar bear and Arctic fox, and the salmon and orca on the side. So we tried to place them in where they would have been found. All right, and then the next, sorry, they're behind. Yeah, just. Okay.
While she's describing that, I'll just speak to some of our other projects that we have that aren't quite represented here yet. But we have one of our 3D art class did a whole research on stolen artwork that had been taken from Indigenous communities across Canada, a lot during times when there was bans on artwork and mask and on potlatches. And the Canadian government stole that artwork and then sold it off to museums around the world. And a lot of that art, some of that art has been reappropriated to those communities, but a lot of that art has not. And so they did an art piece that showed kind of the dust collection of what that would look like if that artifact was still here in person. So they had their art all around the outside of this, and they're going to represent that on the maps later too.
That will be on the map, yeah, as well. Just a couple of other things. The grade 6 students have created emblems for each of the different nations across the country, and we were trying to come up with a way to present it that sort of gave a flag kind of effect, and these will be on the map as well. The students have figured out where they go. And there's a grade 8 project where they are doing some printmaking. They've done some research. They're doing a book study with braiding sweetgrass, additional research on the plants of significance, and then they again will create the image and do some printmaking, which I will support them and guide them to do that. There's a number of different things still coming. It's an ongoing piece. Where it gets displayed finally, we don't worry too much about that, but it will be displayed at the school. And one of the things that I feel is really important, I spoke a little bit at the beginning about collaboration and arts integration. Being part of a big project like this, it's one of the things that as part of my role, I get to facilitate these group projects. And visual art as a medium and as an art form is not inherently a group activity. The other arts that are part of our program, the dance, the music, the theater, these activities are by their nature inherently group activities. You do them with other people, and visual art is inherently a solo practice. You do it by yourself and you develop your own skills. To be part of a visual presentation that is designed to be collaborative is a really unique personal experience as well as community building experience for the kids. So I feel like that's a really important part of why this project is significant. It will be on display at the school at our exhibition of learning, May 29th, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. if anybody wants to come and have a look at some of the other things, hear some of the whatever else is going on. Yeah, and that's our presentation. Did you have anything else you wanted to add in?
Just that you can see that there's starting to be some stitching that our
Oh, yeah, I
textiles
didn't
group
know
is
that.
also going to be stitching all the way around it. So that's actually Mrs. Horner
The
as well.
textile class is
The
doing
textile
some-
class will be working on that. So yeah, it's nice to have it up in our foyer, and we will have many kids will stop. They'll look at what's been added because it always kind of evolves, and it's just a really nice opening when you walk into our schools.
And we have 2 fantastic Indigenous support workers at our
Yes.
school, and Mr. Julian is an amazing artist himself and has worked with some students to create some stuff to go around the borders and to go in the corner over there by Mrs. Bennett. So.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has been beautiful, but I will save my further remarks till after the table has spoken. Trustee Rai is on it again.
Can we have both of you up here, if you don't mind?
Yes. Back to the front.
So
Thank
this
you.
This is like really, really good. I wish I could do something like this, but can't, so maybe I'll have to come and learn from you guys. 2 questions, one for each of you. So it shows 130 schools over there?
Yes.
So do you have like stamps for all 130, or there's some kind of repeats?
There are no repeats. We take photos of the actual schools.
Okay.
And then we trace them onto the foam, and then that is when we shape them out and cut them out so that they're completely unique to the schools, and they're representing that exact school, because no school is the same.
Same, okay.
So we really want to represent all of the schools, but as Ms. Horner said, we are very small classes, but I really hope we can get all the stamps on there at some point.
Take a few years, but
No, thank you. So how many are there right now, roughly?
There should be about 30.
30, okay. No, thank you. And for you, the write-ups and the animals, like same question, similar sort of question. Are they like all individual different animals, or are they repeats as well in some of their, like different cultures have similar animals?
There are some repeats, but nobody copied like anybody else's reason how they thought, or not thought, but they researched how they like came, or came to the indigenous nation, or like what animals they did. And nobody didn't like copy off of each other. We did our own research. There are some repeats of animals, but it is unique to one per each individual student.
Okay, that's very nice. Thank you. Thank you for presenting this.
Thank you. Other board members, Trustee Kendra Rajwan?
Thank you, Chair Wilson. I just have a question and a comment. I think you mentioned you were Indigenous, right? So when you did this art project, was there any part that was really hard to do, knowing the history?
The material is very heavy, and I did find the school that I personally researched on was Elkhorn Residential School, which is in Manitoba, where my parents and my heritage are from. So I did find a lot on my tribe and all of the tribal suffering and how it affected my tribe specifically, which was pretty difficult to learn about when having to do the research. But I'm really glad we did do it, because I love personally learning about my history, and how can we fix it if we don't learn it?
And just a comment, as a visual learner, I appreciate the art, the art is the forefront, and is teaching everybody behind the scenes in all aspects. And I see that this is portraying the trauma, and it's also showing the healing, the process that you went through, which you kind of just mentioned. And it kind of gives you like tears of hope, and showing you that we're displaying truth and reconciliation in an artistic way. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee White?
I just love the way Asia integrates the arts, and it's not just art, it's geography, it's history, it's philosophy, it's law, it's all sorts of stuff. It's beautiful. My curiosity is, did someone draw the outline of Canada there by hand? Like, that's quite stunning.
Yes.
So you guys did that?
I did draw it on. We hung it up, but I projected the.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay, so it wasn't free. Okay, I was trying to figure out how you did
Should have
that.
just said freehand.
Okay.
It is difficult to find maps that don't have the political boundaries on them.
Right.
And then for the students to place things accurately, just using the geography was an important part of it. This is by Lake Winnipeg, this is by these different inlets, without using the political boundaries, but yeah.
Well done. Very nice.
Thank you. Anyone else? Trustee Roque?
Yeah, I found it interesting also, especially with all the, what would we say, political shenanigans going on these days, that there wasn't a 49th parallel, and I thought that was kind of a good look. Well, yeah, just because that's what it looked like before, people drew lines and split countries up and things like that, right? So I thought that was quite interesting, and I think this is the basis for a road trip across Canada and go to see all this stuff. So that's really, I've done a lot of traveling up north too, and it's beautiful, this country. And
You hear that, Dad? Maybe it's time to take that road trip almost.
And then one other recollection, in December I was at the Natural History Museum in London, and they have an amazing collection from all over the world. It's a little bit controversial because a lot of the stuff was taken, right? I mean, some say stolen, some say it was research, but I mean, it's just fascinating to learn about the history of Indigenous peoples all over the world, whether it's in China and Egypt, here in North America and so on, and kind of study how how we kind of evolved on this globe to where we are today, and hopefully with a goal to like all living together, right, as humans here on this planet, right? So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Anyone else before I, okay, so stay there, because there's two things. You probably know what one of them is. It's probably the same person. We'll ignore that for now. What I want to say is so very well done. Great work, both of you. You're both very articulate, both very well spoken. I expect I'm going to see you in leadership out there in the rest of the world at some point. I'm absolutely convinced. Again, I want to thank Mrs. Bennett, Mrs. Wilms, and also Mrs. Beckett and Mrs. Horner. I'd also like to thank the families and those you call family, so that, you know, you can bring this work forward, because it's very important, especially to you, because you are Indigenous.
We're both Indigenous, yeah.
Oh, you're both Indigenous. Okay, so my mistake. But I also, because the lady who is...
That wasn't clear. Kayla's mom has been up in front of the...
Ah, okay, all right. Okay, now, so your mom is, of course, responsible for you, but also responsible for the Indigenous support workers in the building, with support financially, of course. Can't leave him out of the picture. But I do want to say that, you know, you should be very proud, and this is tremendous work.
When I first heard about this opportunity, I immediately took it when Ms. Beckett approached me, because I personally really want to go to UFE and study to become an Indigenous teacher.
Yes. Oh, sorry, was that my outside excitement?
Only when you graduate.
Yeah, there you go. Very exciting. Yeah, no, we would welcome you here, both of you, if you want to become a teacher too. So the other part is, of course, part 2. Trustee Stan Peterson has something for you as well, in appreciation for your time to attend.
Yvette, you talked about the rabbit hole of this project. It's amazing how much curriculum is in one idea that expanded to so many other ideas. So thank you. Can I shake your hand and give you this? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
There will be a photo op involved in this as well.
This time I'm not going to go down here. I'm going to stand right there. I'm looking over this way. All right.
Stand and deliver, Stan.
Did you get my good side?
I sure did.
Oh.
Excellent. Thank you. Of course, you're always welcome to stay as long as you like to hear the great work that we do, but I also understand that you have schoolwork, so.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Agent Sumas.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the really exciting part of the public meetings. We are going to move on now to report on achievement and results. I've sort of said that tongue-in-cheek because we talk about fees and et cetera, but it is really important work that we do on behalf of the district. So I'll turn it over to you, Superintendent Nosek.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wilson. I wanted to bring forward to the board and ask your approval for our fee structure for the 25-26 year. I know you've had a chance to review in your packages. I'll highlight a few pertinent pieces. We continue to have student activity fees of up to $30 per student. It covers costs including agendas, guest speakers, identity cards, school events, student leadership, locks, locker rentals, etc. Parking permits of up to $16, graduation fees of $60. I won't read the whole list for you because I know you've had a chance to see it in your package. And we're looking at fairly a status quo approach here. Do note, for example, the IB baccalaureate fees related to exams. And so those are in keeping with our practices and allowances under the School Act. So I put that forward for your questions and or approval.
Thank you. Trustee Nosek? I saw Trustee Rye's hand first. Was it a question or are you moving the motion? Moving the motion?
I was just moving the motion with the thanks that it's as quite similar, or is it exactly similar to last year? So there was no increases, which is good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second it with a comment.
Yes, go ahead.
Question. For adult courses, it mentions that foundation courses continue to be tuition-free. I should know the answer, but what do we mean by foundation courses? Do we have an answer to that? And if not, I was confused by that because...
There are required courses that you need to take for graduation that are different perhaps than your elective courses.
Right.
And so if that's your required language arts or numeracy is my understanding.
That's what I thought, but I was... Thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, Trustee Roque?
Yeah, thanks for the report. I just wanted to say that I think for parents, the education of their children is probably the paramount thing that they think about, right? And the future for their children. So I think most parents are generally happy to pay for something that provides good value for their students if needed. So before we were to cut programs, let's say, in future, I would rather see us have a discussion, let's say, to say, well, do we need to balance our budget better on this particular program? So I would just encourage the staff and the board, if we do get into a situation where we say something's unsustainable, let's talk about the fees and engage with the community and just find out if there's some way we can balance it while maintaining a program. That's my only
That's
comment.
not the case at the moment, but thank you.
Yeah, I know it's not the
Yeah.
case, just being proactive on that topic. Thanks.
Certainly. Thank you. Anyone else? Voting buttons are up. Thank you. Back over to the superintendent, please. Motion is carried.
In keeping with the same theme, so we have academy programs that you're familiar with and supportive of, including our soccer academies, golf academies, softball, baseball, etc. And those occur in secondaries and in some cases middle schools. It is generally a cost recovery approach, and you can see the fee structure that we are recommending for the 25-26 school year. And you will note, again, we've been able, for the most part, to keep fees where they have been historically. There is an increase of, I think, $51 as a result of some increased costs associated with the coaching and equipment demands of the ERMS Academy.
Okay.
And ask the board to approve those fees.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Trustee Rai. Oh, seconded by Trustee Kandarajwan. Some other people were faster.
Thank you, Chair Wilson. Well, just with a comment,
Yeah.
I just want to appreciate once again, coming from a sports family, that we are supporting sports in any possible way we can for our students. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Trustee White?
Yeah, just a question that I think there are, but I just want to make sure there are some contingencies for families if there's like financial hardship, right?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, we have financial hardship policies and there's a process in place.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, everyone's voted. It was carried unanimously. District planning team update, Superintendent Nosak.
Thank you, trustees. I wanted to take a few moments of your time to give you an update on our district planning team work to date this year. Many of you, thankfully, are able to participate in this. So at a high level, our district planning team has a mandate to support a system-wide focus on enhancing student learning in the district, and reflects a public commitment to work together to improve learning for each student. The team, as you know, consists of trustees, of district staff, of principals and vice principals, parents, teachers, and secondary students from each of our schools. We've had some really wonderful conversations this year around three themes so far. Earlier in the year, we spoke about education in the age of AI. Then we spoke to our students about the anti-racism action plan and their experiences in their schools related to such. And then recently around career education. I thought that I would highlight a few of the pieces that we have gleaned from these conversations, which, as you can see here, are intended to help make us better and inform our system and in alignment with our vision, mission, and values. And of course, our strategic plan, most notably student success. And I just referenced a moment ago the alignment with the enhancing student learning. And so we've made sure that these conversations touch on the intellectual development, human social, and careers. So back in October, we asked students about generative AI. How are you using it? We asked them how they're using it at home, at school, how are teachers using it, and how might AI help us to personalize learning. This is just a high-level overview for you, but here are some of the pieces. We learned that it's being used for writing, editing, study, homework assistance, creative projects, etc. Entertainment, media, health, fitness. I won't read the whole list, but we gleaned some of these. Maybe I'll reference that when we learn some of the specifics, the way that students use them for things like study habits, for scheduling, for entertainment, it was helpful. Also learning some of the ways that teachers are using the practices in their classrooms, and even very specific examples of apps. And I remember being introduced to one that you could take a picture of a math problem and have it help explain for you. So we want to continue to sort of try to find ways to leverage this in a way that helps our students and helps our teachers. We also, in January, spoke about anti-racism, and specifically our anti-racism action plan, which is in keeping with the ministry's anti-racism action plan. We asked, what does it look like, and what do you wonder, or what do you want to learn more about? And so here are some of our findings. An increased emphasis on recognizing and celebrating diverse cultures in schools was noted. Utilizing student-led initiatives, student clubs, surveys, etc. A need to continue to build community awareness and reporting mechanisms. We could promote our equity toolkit even more, and how important and essential it is to follow up on reports where there is racism, and that racism needs to be called out, and this is ongoing work. And then a note that our schools find individual ways sort of reflective of their communities to engage in this work. And of course, this is ongoing work, and I thought it was helpful and insightful to hear from our students who are in our schools every single day, as well as our adults. And then recently, and trustees, I know many of you were able to participate, and I thought it was really neat. We had a chance to engage high school students in conversations about careers, what they're imagining for themselves in life after high school, how we are preparing them and or not preparing them, or their perceptions of such. And we flipped the script a little bit in this last conversation, you might recall. We actually centered the first question on the adults and said, we would love for you to share your journey with the students. And are you currently doing, from a career perspective, what you imagine you'd be doing when you were in high school? And it was interesting to see, although it was my hunch, that the vast majority of adults said, no, I'm not. And I think there was a good lesson right there for some students who feel anxiety about maybe having to know. And so more specifically, and I'm not going to ask you to try to read that font, but they did note some things that we were, and maybe I'll just come back to this around how we encourage them to think, including post-secondary. And so they noted the CLC and CLE courses, ADST and trades and things like mentorship, some of the software we introduced, like the My Blueprint and career advisors and good relationships. We did certainly a deep dive there. They also, though, and we asked them, what can we do better, from your perspective? Because as I said before, this isn't just for the sake of talking, but enriching our system. And so they thought we could still advertise some of the opportunities better, and whether it's offer more volunteering or advertise them better. And let's keep leaning into the parent-adult conversations and adult-student conversations. And I thought a neat one around focusing on the how, how do you get into a certain field or program? And while there was lots of shout out for hands-on opportunities, still a desire for more. There is financial literacy in our curriculum, but there, on some students' part, a sense for more real life, etc. So great learning for all of us. This is, as I said, a part of how we want to continuously improve and report back to the system. Unfortunately, we had a conflict with our most recently scheduled meeting, but stay tuned on more with respect to our district planning team.
Thank you, Superintendent. Table, any questions? Comments? I will comment. Actually, Trustee Kendaraj, go ahead, please.
Oh, that's still on. Thank you, Chair Wilson. I just appreciated attending all of the meetings, And it's nice to see the work that we're doing in the district aligns with what the students think at the table when we're having the discussions.
Thank you. Trustee Rai.
Oh, I attended, I think, 3 of them, and it was, actually, I attended all 3 of them. The 4th one got cancelled. And I was pleasantly surprised at how much information or how much the students now can do of what we could do when we were young students. So it was and this happens to me every year when I go to, so it was really an eye-opener. I'll be bold enough to say that the last one we had to cancel because we had a threat in our schools, and it is unfortunate that we get, I would use the word undesirables, to do these kind of threats to our schools so that our students suffer, and of course the staff suffers as well, and it takes out so much of our resources which we can put into other places. So just wanted to thank the staff for doing everything they could, but also wanted to let the outside world know that let's not go there anymore. I know the world is divisive, but let's leave the schools as safe as possible. Or not as safe as possible, the safest. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rai. Anyone else? Trustee Roque?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really enjoyed the career part of this talk. I thought it was really useful for the kids and the parents at my table and teachers as well. I thought it was really useful, and it takes the anxiety away for kids if they sort of have a little bit of an idea what they might do after high school. So that was really well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I do want to say that it's a fantastic way to connect with students across all the high schools in our district, whether it is Asia Sumas Mountain, or if it's Bakerview, or anywhere in between. It's really important for the board to hear and have that connection with students to find out and hear what they consider is working or what they're hoping to see. Sometimes it's not feasible, but we can all dream. And but knowing and understanding what it is that students are experiencing is really important to the board. We have members from our partner groups that are also in attendance. We have the ATU, we have DPAC, we have also my APVPA, and we have senior leadership. And it is just rewarding to be able to have that one-on-one time directly with students. So to your point about keeping our students safe, that was our priority, and we maintained that. And it was unfortunate that this district planning team meeting number 4 was canceled, but it was also completely understandable, not only understandable, but acceptable and required, because it did use a lot of resources. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. For his last set of presentations for the year, for his time in Abbotsford.
Might be bringing him back.
Well, we could bring him back. He's welcome to come back. Operations, I now am asking Secretary Treasurer Veluk for first, third quarter financial update, but then I'm going to ask him just to continue on into the preliminary budget update because they're tied.
Okay, thank you, Chair Wilson. The first item is the third quarter financial update. This was presented to the board at audit committee. I think that was last week. I'm not going to get into the details of the Q3 update. It'll be discussed as we work through the preliminary budget estimates. So that's just there for information, and I will move to the preliminary budget information. Sean is the clicker? Okay. So first off, just a reminder of where we're at in the process in terms of getting approval of the budget. We've worked through all of these phases so far, getting into the sort of the final run of finalizing all of the budget information, and the board will have the final set for approval at the June board meeting. But between now and June, there'll be a number of steps that the board will go through in terms of evaluating the information from this evening's presentation, providing some direction to staff, and then in turn, further information will come back to the board in May's finance and in board meetings. So we always talk about the planning cycle. We're working through that stage. We're in that March to May section, completing preparation. We've done a lot of work. Staffing meetings have internally been taking place to determine school level staffing, and that information will be shared with schools, I think, next week. But like I say, getting ready for that approval day in June. I've talked about the guiding principles. Again, at the next, or at the June meeting, we'll talk a little bit more about the guiding principles around the board's budget and talk about how, in preparation of the budget and seeking board approval for the budget, how we've maintained a commitment to implementing the guiding principles that the board has approved in terms of its budget. Obviously, we work hard around our strategy. One of the things that the district has worked really hard on the last decade is we often refer to it as building our strategic muscle. But in terms of building a well thought out strategic plan that links to our operational plans and typically our budget is something that the board takes pride in, and again, I think you'll see reflected in the budget the commitment to maintaining the priority areas that the board has. That being said, budgets, as you can appreciate from the media and seeing what the current state around the province looks like in terms of school districts' budgets, you can appreciate that we're in a similar position in terms of having to make some spending reductions and some choices. Sean, the superintendent, want to weigh in at any point in time?
I'll chime in shortly.
Okay. So one of the things that is important to the board is to maintain financial health for the organization. There's a lot of long-term plans that are in place that requires that we maintain that long-term view of financial health. So we do that through having an accumulated operating surplus, and there's an administrative procedure, 524, that talks about the different components of our accumulated surplus and sort of some guidelines around what it's to be used for and some guidelines around typical amounts. So in 23, at the end of the 23-24 school year, the board had an $8.7 million accumulated surplus comprised of those four areas. So when you see things like it says internally restricted due to constraints on funds, that's talking about funds that we have received that we can only spend on one thing. And so, for example, that would be something like our Indigenous education targeted funding. We can spend that only in that area. If we don't spend it all in a particular year, it gets carried forward to another year and it can only be spent in that area. So that's an internally restricted amount in that area. Internally restricted for planned future operations. We in this district allocate budgets to our schools, and they in turn have to plan their own operations at the school level. So they have the same opportunity. If they have a project in one year that they can't afford, they may set aside funds from one budget year to a future budget year to help pay for some bigger projects potentially. So almost $1.2 million in our accumulated surplus is targeted for schools. So that money is set aside, and every year we roll that back into school-based budgets. And if a school doesn't spend their budget, that amount gets rolled back into their budget the next year. If they overspend, we also roll that overspend back into their budget into a future year. So it does require schools to manage their budgets. I guess that being said, when an overspend does happen, for the board's information, in the past 5-6 years, we've always absorbed a school overage. Typically, they're not very big. Oftentimes, they're in schools that have more difficult operations, so they're, maybe schools that have higher needs that require additional resources. So we always have the meeting with the principal and talk about their budget, and then we've basically written off those overages at the end of every year. We also write it off if there's a principal change and those kind of things. But that is something that schools do appreciate, having the ability to carry forward money from one year to the next. The next one is internally restricted by the board for your own future requirements, so things like your technology plan. And so this summer, we will be replacing all of our end-user equipment. So every laptop in the district will be replaced. All of the devices that we have at the end of this school year will be replaced. Now that won't pay for replacing all the end-user equipment, but it does provide some supplementary funds to help deal with some of the one-time costs that we have during that rollout. So most of our equipment is leased, so it gets returned and replaced with new equipment. So this will be the 4th time in my time in Abbotsford that we've replaced all of our end-user equipment. And what that does is it allows schools to rely on technology a lot more. They don't have equipment that's failing. And so I just think that there's a lot of merit to our IT plan, and we've been pretty committed to it since 2010. The unrestricted operating surplus is the amount that is specified in policy to be between 1% and 3% of operating revenues, and so in our case, it's set to be somewhere in the range of between $2.4 and $7.3 million. At the end of last year, it was $5.6 million, so it's comfortably in that range of having some money set aside to deal with unforeseen expenditures that can come during the year. It's set aside to deal with any spending that the board might want to do. So you'll see in this year's budget, if you don't want to make all of the cuts to balance your budget, you can rely on your accumulated surplus to help sort of transition over a period of time to get to a year or two down the road to see if the financial conditions improve. So having that accumulated surplus creates a lot of opportunity for the board to better manage its finances. And I can tell you from districts that don't have that accumulated surplus, the extent to which they have to make budget spending reductions and have no options and have no choices to defer spending reductions to a future year and have to make them. It is really hard to not have the sort of the financial means to be able to manage your budget going forward. So I think that you're in a good place in terms of your accumulated surplus. There's often, you'll see when we, at the next meeting, share the information from the engagement survey, most people understand our surplus. We worked really hard in the last number of years to explain that to people about what it is. It's not just, pent up cash that we have sitting here that we have no idea what we're going to do with it. We actually do have a plan around how we're managing our budgets, and we know that in future years we build a 3-year plan around our finances, so we know that we have requirements in years going forward. Oh, and trustees, please stop at any time if you have any questions. So before I get into talking about the budget for 25-26, I want to highlight one of the main areas that is of concern. I mentioned this at our last meeting. I'm going to mention it again. You'll see the extent to which this issue is affecting our district. But when you look across here at our spending over since 2020-21 school year, and you see the increases in all of our main categories of spending, so that's teachers and principals and vice principals and education assistants. You see the percentage increase. Those percentage increases coincide with things like labor settlement costs. So as contracts, there's a wage increase, it gets reflected in that. If we increase the number of staff, so our enrollment has been growing slightly, so we've added staff over that period of time, so you can see that that also contributes to some of that cost increase. All of those areas, teachers, principals, vice principals, right up to other professionals, are funded by the province. So we receive additional funding from the ministry to pay for those wage increases. The two on the right-hand side, employee benefits and supplies and services, are not typically funded, although I will say that some of the employee benefit costs are, if there's a benefit plan that is part of a negotiated settlement with teachers union, for example, or with Teamsters in our case, if there's a benefit settlement that's part of the collective agreement change, that is funded as well. But those benefit costs fluctuate based on market conditions, based on our utilization of the benefit plan, so we've seen that number increase as well. Supplies and services, we talk about inflationary pressures. That's inflationary pressures. We've seen those costs increase and not typically been funded for most of the costs that are in that area. The one that is extremely concerning is substitute employee costs, so paying for when employees are absent, we replace them. This, and by the way, these costs are across the province, so these are provincial costs. We're looking at the cost for all school districts in the province. That one has increased 88% since 2020-21, and it is unfunded. So there is no ministry money to pay for the $136 million that cost has increased by. So I don't know if that needs to change with government, how we find a way to receive funding for that, but that is, and as you'll see in our budget, putting significant strain on the finances of school districts. I just want to punctuate that point, if I may. The bar graph really does speak for itself, and you're going to see in the next slide in more specific detail the scope to the tune of millions of dollars that we do not receive funding for, and part of the real pressures that we will face in the years ahead, particularly if this can't be curbed. So in our costs over that time from 2020 to 2021, this is what it looks like. We thought we were kind of bucking the trend. If you look back at this one and see sub-costs increase in 2021, in 2022, in 2023, there were sort of increases all along. We thought we were kind of beating the trend here a little bit until this year. So our costs this year, we have a budget of $9.2 million. Our costs are going to exceed $10 million in the current school year that we're in. And so that is about a $5.2 million increase in spending or in costs since 2020-21. So that is what we are dealing with when it comes to the budget in this year, and probably the single biggest pressure that we have. Yeah.
Yeah, you asked us to ask questions as they come up. I hope that's okay. Yeah, can you give us a sense how are we going to ameliorate this problem? The economy is slowing a little bit now, partly because of tariffs, just economically things are slowing down, unemployment's going up a little bit. Do you think that might have a factor? I mean, are there going to be more available employees to fill this gap, or does it not affect teaching perhaps?
I'll start and then feel free. So it's your question has layers, and I'll offer an answer from this part. So part of what this invites and requires us to do is look at where we're spending that isn't required. And so, for example, if we have positions that aren't required by ratio, and we're suddenly in a position where we're in a structural deficit, we need to look at those and say we might not be able to afford that anymore. And so we're already having to have those conversations. And I think if you hear some of the stories, some of it's even in the media around neighboring districts. I saw a headline just the other day about EAs These are the kind of conversations that are happening. And then to your other point, I think continuing to invest efforts in how we can support wellness and attract more people into our sector, while we're simultaneously competing with all sectors who are looking for workers.
So you'll remember back in 2020, 21, or 2022, 23, when we had a period of time where we had lots of unfilled absences. We had teachers away, we couldn't fill the positions, we had functional closures coming out of COVID because we didn't have enough replacement staff. We did an analysis in one of those years that if we had enough replacement workers for all of our teachers and all of our support staff, it would have put us into a accumulated deficit overall in the entire district, because the absences were very high. And so it is, I think in some ways it's just the trend coming out of COVID. We're not, districts are trying to figure this out. I mean, we're seeing this trend. You go back to this, people are going, what are we going to do about this? How do we start to either, one, get funded for this, or two, find a way to address it? I think improving some wellness initiatives and things like that are important. We've kind of been doing some of that, so we just need to keep working on that and hopefully see some of that curve. But in the meantime, it's a cost pressure that we need to address.
Yeah, it's massive, yeah. Okay, thank you.
So I want to give you an update on where we're at in the current year. So the forecast, so obviously in the 24-25, you approved the budget at the end of January or in the February, I think. And you'll see the bolded number, it says 1.68. We had a $1.68 million projected deficit in the 24-25 budget, but you had an $8.7 million surplus, which to apply to that deficit. So we had the effect of reducing our overall accumulated surplus down to $7 million. The forecast that we have for this school year shows that our deficit will only be about $100,000. So we're basically in that balanced budget situation, which is pretty positive. So our accumulated surplus will increase, we think, to about $8.8 million, which is good news before I get to all the bad news. So this is what it looks like, a little bit more detail. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time looking at this information. You can see on the revenue side, obviously we don't have a lot of variances in our budgeted revenues to our forecast, because 98% of the money we receive is in operating grants and tuition fees, so those are generally pretty easy to forecast. You see a $500,000 increase in provincial grants. That's as a result of our February enrollment count that just came in, and it's about $500,000 higher than anticipated, and that's just because we had more student enrollment in our virtual program and in some of the other programs that are funded at the mid-year point. On the expenditure side, overall salaries, our plan is to be about $2 million under budget, and those are generally showing up in the support staff categories, whether it's education assistants or support staff. I'll get into that in a little bit, and some of the reasons why we think that is, and that's not, just as a super high level, I'll just tell you now that I don't believe it's simply a result of not wanting to spend. I think that we've got some overestimates in the budget that as we've been working through trying to figure out where we're at, we often have surpluses in our EA category every year, I think. We overestimate our education assistants, and so when we look at that, especially in a year when we're getting to a place where we have to sort of trim costs, we're looking at this a little closer. So you can see a $2.5 million, under budget in our support staff category generally. Employee benefits are again creeping up about $500,000 over what our budget is. Our supplies and services, again, fairly easy to estimate because we give those, most of that money goes out to school budgets and to our facilities department. And this forecast is based on that Q3 information that we have. So after
3/4 of the year, we're able to come up with a pretty good idea of where the year-end numbers will land. So that shows you what our $100,000 deficit for the current year looks like. Pardon me? Or I mean 100 surplus, yeah.
In the supplies and services, I know this will not be like hundreds of thousands of dollars, but is it made a difference with the carbon tax going off the fuels?
It will next year's budget.
Okay, but
So-
because it's happened for 3-4 months, maybe it'll, okay.
Yeah.
Do we still get carbon credits, or?
We actually still pay
Okay,
for our carbon because we pay for photocopy paper. We pay for all those kind of things that to become carbon neutral. So you get that carbon neutral report I think in May of every year. So you'll see that coming forward shortly. Okay? But we'll be making some adjustment. We're still working on what is the full year impact of the carbon tax on the district. And then we have to sort of make some estimate of what is the full year impact of potentially of tariffs. What are some cost increases that we might see as a result of some of those costs on the goods that we buy.
so another question, since you brought tariffs up, do we have a lot of stuff coming in from the states, or services probably will not be affected, but do we have a lot of things coming in from the states, and do we have a lot of services over there?
We have a lot of Canadian suppliers that bring in goods manufactured in the U.S.
Okay.
You know, we just bought some new bus lifts. We had to buy 3 bus lifts for buses, and it's a $60,000 cost. And so I was hoping we ordered those before the tariffs hit. But we're still, that's work in progress. But there's a number of things like that that just aren't manufactured in Canada.
Just on the topic of tariffs, since we're a government taxpayer-funded organization, I mean, is there any validity to sort of saying, well, we should have a carve-out on, Canadian tariffs for goods coming out of the U.S. because it doesn't, it only makes our costs go up, right? I mean, unless they just infuse that money right back into the system.
Yeah.
Right, like you're.
Raise pay rate?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you work for the provincial government someday, then maybe you will. Yeah.
When you look at the provincial government's budget, and I'll just say that the contingencies that they put in place in the provincial budget for responding to these tariffs, when you look at all of the provincial budget ministries, that many of them that were cut, including forestry, including some of these places that had budget cuts, and then you look at the contingencies that are set aside that are inclusive of the public sector bargaining mandates. Are part of what the contingency amount is. I think the finances, if these tariffs come to be at the level that, they might not materialize the way they are, but if they come the way that you look at, sort of just the news tells you how this is going to look, I'm certain that the provincial amounts in their contingencies don't cover all of those planned costs, inclusive of the tariffs. And so then I would see that the budget is in a little bit of
Understood, yep, okay, thank you.
Disarray, maybe.
Yeah, disarray, good word.
Okay, so our budget, and as the province, they are in the enviable position of telling school districts to balance their budgets, and you have the statutory responsibility to balance your budget with the resources that the province provides. So our budget is really based on, and it's as complicated as it might seem, it's not that complicated. It's based on student enrollments for the most part. 98% of the money that we get is based on enrollments. It comes in a whole bunch of different ways. It comes in per student funding for attending school. It comes with special education. It comes in a whole bunch of different categories in terms of the revenues. It comes in international student fees. And then spending, 90% almost 90% of our entire budget is spent on salaries and benefits. So it doesn't leave a lot of room to cover the costs of all the other stuff that schools need to function. But I think that we do an okay job. So here's, I'll talk about these budget drivers, and like I say, enrollment is the big one. We're forecasting an increase in our enrollment of 137 students. You can see the very bottom line, we're forecasting a decrease in enrollment of our international students, just based on the current conditions we see in the market. We think that's going to soften a little bit. We see our unique student needs categories continuing to grow, whether it's in ELL or in the special education categories. We're seeing some increases in those areas. This information is used to calculate what our operating grants are projected for next year. So this information has been included in that. And the superintendent can weigh in anytime he wants. So I want to talk about the other part. I said 90% is the staffing costs. Here's what the staffing looks like that's projected right now, and this is subject to change. This is a work in progress. I can almost assure you that by the time you see this at the next meeting, there will be some changes to this as we refine all of the staffing levels that are currently in place. So we expect to make a 0.36 reduction in our teaching staff for next year. And I'll get to that in a minute. We haven't at this point adjusted any other category with the exception of education assistants, and you see that showing a reduction of 16 FTE from 494.8 to 478.8. I flagged that information for you because while we have a budget of 494.8, we've realized that we have a 30 FTE budget that has been assigned to no one. So we've basically over budgeted by 30 FTE in this year's budget. So we're going to make that adjustment next year. So right now we've got about 464 FTE, and that is kind of where, when we talk to the people responsible for those departments, they've said, well, I've hired exactly the number I'm supposed to have. And then in our investigation, we've realized that we've maybe had some duplicate lines in the budget that just weren't assigned. So we'll make some adjustment for that. So our budget assumptions, again, 137 enrollment increase, staffing adjustments generally related to enrollment changes. No major services or programming changes are contemplated in this year's budget. And you've seen school districts across the province in the media lately talking about some changes to their level of services and some changes to the programs that are offered in their school district. We're not at that point yet. I don't know if that will materialize in a future budget year, but at this point we don't see that is necessary for next year's budget. Any staffing costs that we think are related to class size composition language, so the part that's in the collective agreement, if we expect that the Classroom Enhancement Fund, CEF, we refer to, will be funded through there, so that we would get funded for any teachers that are required based on class size composition language. We're going to continue to increase the use of Canadian suppliers for goods and services, and that's some government direction to us. So some of the suppliers that we have and some provincial bodies that are dealing with procurement are focusing on more Canadian suppliers. Sometimes that results in an increase in cost, so we're going to have to sort of work through that. And we're also, again, taking the lead from government around suspending US-based trips for either student travel or conferences and things like that. So our budget pressures, we talked about this at the last meeting. I think we had budget pressures of $5 or $6 million. The international student decline is causing a budget pressure of a little over $1 million. We have teacher salary increments. These aren't funded either, $1.4 million as teachers progress through the salary scale. It's a long salary scale. I know there's often discussion about the increments in the salary scale. It would be nice if they were all the maximum of the salary scale, then we wouldn't have a budget pressure every year to recognize, but it is part of what we have to deal with in terms of managing the annual budget. We do have inflationary pressures. We know that things that we buy have over the years increased, and we've never adjusted for inflation. This may change, and we may have some additional information around this in terms of applying carbon tax reduction costs in the district. But we still know that there's a lot of budget pressures that or inflationary pressures that we've simply had to absorb. Our substitute employee costs are increasing. We're making an estimate of a $1.2 million increase in costs for next year. Employee benefit costs are increasing again due to primarily at this point due to utilization of our benefit plan. So if the more the plan gets used, the more cost is incurred. The technology plan refresh, we've set aside some money for that in the budget as well, in addition to the resources that are in accumulated surplus. And we continue, as we've talked about a lot, seeing increased demands for transportation services. So right now, you're going to see some estimates in a minute, but they're based on this information. So the budget adjustments that we've made, I already mentioned that it's a 0.36 reduction in our teaching staff. That is across all funds. So you know that we have an operating fund, a special purpose fund, and a capital fund. The reduction across the board is 0.36. In the operating fund, it is a reduction of 6.36. And that is primarily in non-enrolling positions that are we currently have in place that are outside of the collective agreement requirements. So we're looking at making some reduction in that area. We're going to increase 14 education assistant positions from that current year number. So we said we've got 464 and what the old budget was. We said, well, let's take what the current number we have, and we're going to, based on our forecast of enrollment, increase that by 14 FTE education assistant positions. So while it's going to show a reduction from the 24-25 budget, it's going to show an increase from our forecast from 24-25. There's no changes to wage levels included in the budget this year. Those our unions will be in collective bargaining soon. Benefit cost increases are going to increase by $1.1 million. And we've included costs in this year's budget to relocate portables from different sites. Again, that's not a cost that's covered by the province, and we've set aside $500,000 to do that. And we will continue to be working on staffing adjustments to make sure that they work in terms of managing all of our schools and departments. So here's the preliminary budget numbers for next year are the second column from the right, under where it says preliminary 25-26 budget. Our revenue is forecast to increase just under $2 million next year, and not a lot of difference there, and obviously the biggest part is in the increase to the operating grant and that decrease to international student revenue that we previously talked about. On the expenditure side, so this incorporates all of those budget pressures and changes that we talked about. Our teacher salary costs will increase by about $1 million. We're seeing an overall decrease, and these are the change column here is the change from the prior year budget. So I'm not using the forecast numbers at this point. So when I'm talking about the change, this is a change from the prior year budget. So it's going to show a $730,000 decrease in education assistance, but it's really about a $350,000 increase from the forecast in education assistance to this year's budget. I was going to leave that column in, but I thought it was excessive columns of numbers. So, again, oh, sorry?
Yeah, just wondering, what do you suspect? I'm trying to wrap my head around what's going to be more accurate, the comparison to the forecast, because we're 3 quarters into the year now, or the comparison to last year's budget? What? Yeah.
Well, the only thing that's the important part is to look at what the budget number is. The forecast is not so important. We've built the budget based on the forecast. So we don't typically here build a budget based on the prior year budget. We always build it based on the most current information we have in the forecast. If we see, like we have in the last month, substitute employee costs escalate at a rate higher than what we see, this will change again. So this budget column is based on the forecast for comparative purposes, and when you get your ministry document, it's going to always compare back to the prior year budget.
Yeah, so it'd be fair to say that even though the forecast is different from last year's budget quite significantly, we have pretty good confidence in this minus 2.1
Yes.
number here. Yeah, okay, fair enough, yeah.
So, moving down this list, salaries are going to increase, benefits are increasing. You see the substitute line item there in 23-24 was 6.6 million. Our budget now is 10.4 million. So just in that period of time, imagine if we didn't have that $4 million increase in cost, or 3.8 million. That would eliminate any projected deficit we have, and eliminate any need for staffing adjustments, et cetera, et cetera. So it is just a budget pressure we have to deal with, and hopefully I'm hoping it's kind of a trend and will kind of start to dissipate over time, but we'll see. So we expect interfund transfers, $800,000. That's $300,000 for the commitment to fields, and it's $500,000 to move portables. So those are monies that are capital related. We have to move money from our operating fund into capital to pay those costs. So we anticipate a deficit in 25-26 of $2.1 million. Last meeting we talked about, that deficit was sitting at $5.65 million and would have reduced our accumulated surplus, overall accumulated surplus, to $3.1 million. It would have left you with an unrestricted operating surplus in the negative. So this is just that long-term look of our surplus. We always talk that this is our financial stability right here, and how we manage the finances of the district. You can see that we expect that surplus to increase to 8.8 this year. We expect it to drop to 6.7 next year. It's still in that range. So using $2.1 million, and again, I'll speak to the reason why we have an accumulated surplus is that you've made some budget adjustments already, reductions and changes to staffing, but you've left yourself with a $2.1 million deficit. You've got $2.1 million more in expenditures than you have in revenues. You don't have to make that cut. You can use your surplus to balance the budget for next year. And that's the common thing that we've done over time. So and as long as it's fit within sort of that range of, you look at the line is always a good illustration to me. If we keep it over that $6 million mark, then generally we're okay. But if the trend continues, if the trend that you see in some of those line items here continue to escalate, then you're not going to have, once you've spent 2.1 million out of your surplus and it's 6.7, and next year it's 2.1 again, and then it's going to be 4.7 or worse, you're going to have to start making those harder decisions around reducing spending. But this is buying you some time. And what we've seen in other years, if you look back, and Trustee Ray will always says this, that we always find a way to make it work out. And so, for example, I said that when you looked at the forecast of revenue for this year, that in the updated forecast from our amended budget, it's $500,000 more than we'd anticipated. That's because our February enrollment was higher. That's great. That could happen again next year. It could be $1 million higher. There's a May count. The May count of enrollment could be $500,000 higher and give us another cushion. So some of those things happen over time, but it could also be $500,000 lower, and you just sometimes don't know. So we kind of budget on that. Like, we didn't run to take our budget and say, let's increase our operating revenues based on this new $500,000 number. That's the norm. Well, it's not. When we look back over time, that number goes up and down like this. So we're not going to base it on the highest number that we can imagine. We're going to base it on sort of the mid-range of the numbers. So if it goes down, we only have a little bit of pressure. And if it goes up, we've got a little bit of relief. If we budget up here, if it doesn't hit that, we have a lot of pressure. So I think that this puts you in a pretty decent place, considering that you're still not done the budget, and I don't think that there's spending increases that are left to find out.
So I want to add a comment here. One is that in 2016-17, you'll see that we had a surplus of $11.8 million, and that was too high. The board recognized that was too high, and we had a lot of conversations about where are we finding the middle ground. That was before the ministry, one of the ministries required us to actually find that happy medium.
We actually set, if you look back, it was 14 million in 2010, 2011. And one of the things that, and it went up and down a lot, but back in this time frame, in 2015 or 14, the government started to say that they wanted capital contributions from school districts. So we had, Eagle Mountain was on the books back in these days. So we knew that they wanted at the time, a $4 million contribution from the district to pay for that school. And typically districts never paid capital. But because a number of districts in the province complained about underfunding for so many years and had huge surpluses on their books, but yet complained about not having any money, the province simply said, okay, well, we're going to make you pay capital contribution. That's how it happened. Mm-hmm. And so we had to start setting money aside for that. We were able to negotiate that money down from $4 million to $2.5 million. But we've had recently on the last two projects capital contributions of $750,000 for each one. Our Abbey Middle project has no capital contribution, so I think the ministry's taken enough out of school districts' surpluses, and a lot of districts are left with very minimal accumulated operating surpluses now, especially districts that have had growth because they've either had to fund portables on their own, or they've had to fund capital contributions, or they've had to, in our case even, have to fund, we've got a project, now we have to pay to move the portables. We had to move portables on site, now we have to pay them to move them off site. Mm-hmm. And they're not cheap to move. No. So,
and there are some other districts in the province who are sitting in really uncomfortable spots right now. We're not, percentage-wise, we're not in the same situation they are, but it'll be uncomfortable, but they're in really uncomfortable spots. So thank you for letting me interject.
okay, I always appreciate that the board wants to evaluate the risks in the budget as well, so that we have contingencies set aside in case some things happen. In addition to having surpluses set aside, we have contingencies we set aside on an annual basis, so that if our Director of Learning Support Services comes and says, we have a real issue at a school, we need to hire an additional staff, whether it's an EA or maybe a teacher, we have contingency set aside to sometimes be able to respond to that. So we build some of those contingencies into the budget. But the risks that we have, I think, again, the biggest one that I'll highlight is the increasing absence costs and how that comes, where that levels out at. I hope it's leveled out now. But that, I think, is our biggest budget pressure to deal with going forward. And that's all. You're going to see in May at the first meeting, our Finance Committee in May, you'll see some updates again, because between April 15th today and May, the Finance Department will do a lot more work in fine-tuning that staffing number, because once they work on the staffing, they will share it with schools, and schools will come back and say, this works or it doesn't work, and here's why. And so then we have to be able to respond to schools in terms of dealing with issues that maybe that we don't know about. So we'll see what happens through that time frame, and then there's another public information meeting on May the 8th, where we'll be able to share sort of a really clear picture of where things are at, potentially a little bit clearer than this. And then the board meeting on May 13th, where you'll pretty much see the final draft of the budget before it comes to you on June 17th for approval. So I will take any questions.
Thank you. Trustee Rowe?
Yeah, this is more a curiosity just on how the funding works. So we have a grant that infuses that $240 million into the district. Does that get paid monthly as we need it, or released, or is it a sum that comes into the district at the beginning of the year and then we draw from it?
There's a payment schedule.
Yeah.
That how they pay that to us. The same for capital funds. You're going to deal with the capital bylaw here in a minute, and that's how we access funds from them for that. Cash flow is never a problem.
Yeah.
So we've, we're not in a position where cash flow is an issue for us. All of our employee future benefits are funded. So if you look in our balance sheet, for example, you'll see that there's, a number of millions of dollars of employee future benefits that the province funded back in 2012 that has always given us a good cash balance. Enables us to earn some interest on some of the money that we have, helps alleviate some of those kind of costs. So we're not sort of just in time funding.
Right. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Trustee Peterson?
Thank you. I've always appreciated, under your leadership, Ray, the creating budgets that are very conservative, that speak of huge deficits, and then for whatever reason they end up being much better than anticipated.
They always do.
Under your leadership, that's been something that I think the board has appreciated as well. So once again, we're left in good stead, and I think that's a credit to you and your staff.
Thank you, Trustee Peterson. And in addition to that, Surrey is just not going to have the same benefit. Just saying. Oh, did I say that name? Okay. All right. So now we are still in our operations, student transportation fees. Steve Veluk.
So we've talked, and I've raised it with the board, the need to consider doing a transportation review, and we deferred that throughout the fall because we did not have a transportation manager. You know that at the end of January, we hired a transportation manager, and I would encourage the board in the next year, in the fall, is a pretty good time to start doing that, is to look at doing a review of your transportation services in the district, just to create the efficiencies that are needed. It is, again, an area in the budget that's not funded by the province, so we collect a little bit of money to help offset the cost, but it does not pay for the cost of transportation. So the recommendation in the staff report is to leave fees as is for the coming school year and not increase them, and consider doing a review the next school year.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Trustee White.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why they wouldn't at least increase, say, based on inflation, because if we keep them the same, then, essentially we're going even further into our, education money.
Mm-hmm. Two reasons. One is we bumped them up decently last year, and two, the increased fees, if we bump them 1 or 2%, almost is immaterial to the budget. It wouldn't even show up. If I present the budget to you in terms of millions of dollars, 1.68 million, it would still be 1.68 million.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Roque?
Yeah, just curious, I think the carbon tax reduction is going to impact fuel, but is that for us as well? Because I think it wasn't for business though, right? It was just for, it does impact fuel though.
We're working on that right now.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. That was just for information. So now we will move on to an action item. 8.7, Steve Veluk.
The next one is just one of the areas we did not increase the Abbey Arts Center fees for a number of years, and so we've committed now every year to increase them. So Trustee White, I appreciate the transportation one, but in this case, we have increased fees somewhere between 4 and 5% for Abbey Arts Center, and that is one of the things that is, while it's not a huge revenue generator for us, it provides a facility for the district that allows us to offer a number of unique opportunities for students.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a mover? Moved by Trustee Rai, seconded by Trustee Kandarajwan. Any questions? Thank you for this. Voting buttons. Merci. Okay. We are now moving into a marathon capital bylaw.
Perfect.
We are a board that chooses to, typically, if first motion passes, to do all 3 readings in one meeting. Steve Veluk.
So this capital bylaw, you recall that last year in June, you approved a capital plan and submitted it to the ministry as required.
The ministry's response to that submission from last June comes at this time of year. It comes always in the winter of the following year. And so they have approved the items that you've seen, or that you see in this staff report in terms of the different areas of projects. So there's the CNCP, there's the SEP funding, there's a number of different categories of funding. You can see what they're for: electrical upgrades, HVAC upgrades. There's we actually will receive a couple of new buses this year. The requirement but no major capital, by the way, has been approved. So we did apply for a number of new childcare facilities. No childcare facilities were approved, with the exception of 2 or 3, I think, in the entire province. Any of the other major capital items that we had submitted were not approved, and not surprisingly, based on the budget situation in the province. So these are the ones that are approved. It requires a bylaw so that we can access those funds. And the first motion is to have all 3 readings of the bylaw at this one meeting.
Move to approve
Moved by
the 3
trustee
bylaws.
Wright, seconded by trustee Peterson.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Me? Or
Yeah,
doesn't
you'll
matter?
all have a turn.
Doesn't matter. I'll be quiet now.
Okay, questions? Okay, voting buttons. Now I will go to trustee Kandaraj, one, mover, seconder,
I'm still waiting on the next last one. Okay.
trustee Rouk for the first reading. Right? You caught that?
I did.
Kandaraj, one, and Rouk?
I did. You should have voting buttons.
Okay. And there are the voting buttons. That's our first reading. Second reading, would someone like to move? Trustee White, trustee Peterson, voting buttons, please. They're coming. We're faster than the voting buttons. There we go. And is often not the case with other boards, but I will ask for a mover and a seconder for third and final reading, please.
I can do that if I'm allowed to speak this time, because I've done a few movings.
You may go ahead, trustee Wright.
So we moved that school district number 34 Abbotsford capital plan bylaw number 2225/26 CPSD 34-01 be given third reading, reconsidered, and finally passed and adopted on this 15th day of April 2025.
Seconder. Trustee Kandaraj, one was hot out the gate. All right. Voting buttons, please. It always looks like this is the longest part of the agenda because there's so much writing. That's just not the case. So thank you, everyone, for your patience there. We are now going to move on to new business. Those watching in the public, those at the table will recall that there was a notice of motion served at the last meeting regarding an amendment to policy number 6. It was moved, or it was presented by trustee Rouk, and I will open it to trustee Rouk, but you will need a seconder before you can read the motion and speak to it.
Yeah, thank you. I think I need to make the motion and then I get a seconder, is that right?
You do, yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so
Just not their
I'll read the
rationale.
motion.
Yeah.
No, I'll read it in its entirety, just so it's, yeah, my motion brought forward last board meeting was the following. Whereas transparency and accountability are the fundamental principles of good governance, whereas the current policy requires strict confidentiality of all code of ethics proceedings, limiting the ability of affected trustees to publicly respond to allegations, and whereas an accused trustee should have the right to request a public hearing if they choose, provided it does not contravene privacy laws or other legal obligations, and whereas a trustee subject to a code of ethics hearing should have the ability to publicly disclose details of the proceedings after the hearing has concluded, unless such disclosure would violate legal or privacy obligations. I move that the Trustee Code of Ethics Appendix 1 be amended to include the following provisions. Number 1, that the respondent trustee shall have the option to waive confidentiality and request that their Code of Ethics hearing be conducted in a public forum. This request must be made in writing and will be granted unless legal or privacy considerations prevent public disclosure. In cases where full public disclosure is not possible, the board shall provide a summary of the findings while protecting sensitive information as required by law. Number 2, following the conclusion of a Code of Ethics hearing, the respondent trustee shall have the right to publicly disclose details of the proceedings, including their own defense and any board rulings, unless such disclosure would contravene the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act or other applicable laws. So that is the motion.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by trustee.
I will second.
Trustee Roque, would you like to open your motion?
Yeah, so I'll just speak to the motion and why I presented the motion. Thanks for letting me present. Here in Canada, we have an open judicial system. Section 11 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees a person's right to a fair and public hearing. School boards, on the other hand, they're guided by their own internally developed code of ethics. So each of the 60 school districts in our province has its own process by which it controls how trustees interact with their communities and how trustees are disciplined if they fall out of step. In Abbotsford, our code has been created by the previous boards and amended over the years. We have 16 pages on board governance, 3 pages on our code of ethics, and a further 4 pages on sanctioning for those who violate the code. Any individual trustee can initiate a formal complaint process consisting of the following. There's normally a filing of a complaint, a notification to the trustee, preliminary determination, an investigation, and finally a code of ethics hearing. The process typically includes presentations from school boards and their legal representatives, a presentation by the accused trustee, private deliberations that exclude the accused trustee, publicly funded lawyers paid for by the district and representing the district only. There's no lawyer or legal defense provided for the individual trustee. Trustees have to pay for their own legal defense or go it alone without a lawyer. Determination of the punishment as voted by approved trustees, and then finally a public disclosure carefully crafted by the board chair. Every part of this process, and this is important, is completely confidential, closed to the public, and private. Even a disclosure of the complaint itself by a trustee would be a violation of the code. The process does not promote fairness, transparency, or accountability. On the contrary, a more open system would be a safeguard against potential misuse of the policy. It would allow the public to see how decisions are made, enhancing trust in our board. Every Western democracy in the world has an open judicial system. Every authoritative regime has a closed system. So I would submit that it's obvious that an open system is just simply more trusted. So in closing, it's the people in our community, the parents, the caregivers, the teachers right here in Abbotsford who pay for each and every one of us to sit at this table and do our work. They pay for every meeting we attend, every event we see, every lawyer we hire, every sanctioning process we initiate. So with this motion, I'm just simply suggesting a more transparent process that gives our community access to the work we do. So I hope you'll vote in support of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Roque. Is anyone else wanting to speak? Trustee White, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to second what my colleague, Trustee Rouch, said. Good democracy is built on the foundation of things like freedom of speech and things like transparency. This addition really just seems like common sense to me. There's lots of built-in provisions here, will be granted unless legal and privacy considerations. So I like that the motion takes into account there might be extenuating circumstances, but the principle here is that these things should be done in the public light. I think way more of what we do should be done in the public. I can't really see a good reason not to do it. What are we hiding? So I think that I hope this will be supported by the board. It seems like a no-brainer to me, and I applaud my fellow trustee Trustee Roach for bringing this up. Thank you.
Anyone else have any other comments? Okay, with that, I call for the voting buttons. While you're voting, I do want to clarify one item that Trustee Ray Veluk mentioned, that it was previous board that set in place the code of conduct. This is in fact not true. It wasn't developed at the ministry level until 2023, of which we were this board, and it was adopted by this board January 23, 2024. So we were all involved in the adoption of the policy, just so that you're clear.
If I can correct, that's the adoption of the current policy that was amended, right? But there was a code of ethics prior to that, no?
No.
There was a code of ethics.
Well, there
Yes,
was code
there
of
was.
ethics, but it was rewritten, and that one was removed. It was irrelevant. And
It was
this-
amended, correct?
It's not amended, it's new. It replaced completely the previous one.
Okay.
And this is a code of conduct.
Am I allowed to close before normally the
Actually, yes,
mover
you're allowed
closes, right,
to,
with the
yes, my
statement?
apologies, you're allowed to close.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I just, I hope that anybody who has questions feels free and comfortable to respond. I only hear Trustee White with a question. I did prepare a closing response, though, and I just want to say that, as you cast your vote for or against this motion, please ask yourself, do we wish to emulate democracies around the world, or do we want to be like these authoritative nations where deliberations and rulings are held behind closed doors? I hope the answer is we want to be open. And once again, I hope everybody votes affirmative. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rowe. Voting buttons are up. We could complete that. The motion has failed. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. And we will now move to item 11.2, Abbotsford Agri-Fair sponsorship request. It's attached for your information. This came it came last week from Corey Castle. He is the Executive Director of Abbotsford Agri-Fair. Abbotsford Agri-Fair has and it's up to us if we would like to select an item to support or not, and which one. Abbotsford Agri-Fair, for some time, the board was always invited, and our students get free passes, they still do, and can attend, and is my understanding that they still get free passes. And a very community supportive event. And in recent conversations with Mr. Castle, he was unaware that the board had not received invitations in the last few years. At the same time, he's extended an invitation to some members of the board. He also sent a sponsorship request, and hence it is here today. So, would anybody like to have any opening comments, any thoughts, any yes, no, maybes? Trustee Rai.
I know we haven't done this in the last few years. Have we ever done something like this? Or, because I don't recall.
Not for Agri-Fair, they've never requested before.
This is the first time it's
This is the first time they have made a request, yes. There are varying levels. There's $250 for each or open horse show, $500 contribution, cash or in kind for, I'm not sure what that actually, it's just a cash contribution. And then it goes up from there.
So my question would be, like, do our students go there quite often and quite a lot? Because if our students are there, then I would consider doing a sponsorship, but if they don't get involved, then maybe not.
My understanding is they used to track attendance, because not necessarily by person, but they used to put the passes into the report cards for students at the end of the school year. And then how many of those they received back would be an indicator to them about how many of our students came. It used to be a very high number. We know there's a lot of families there. We're just not sure where they come from, but we know they believe most of the attendance still comes from the Fraser Valley. Trustee Peterson.
Is there any opportunity for in-kind support? Do they require extra busing? Do they, as we talk about budgets and looking ahead, I would want to support them in some way, but it would be, if we could support them in kind, it would probably suit our purposes best.
I'm sure that we could direct our staff to find a way to support them in kind.
And maybe we could have that explored, and if that's not the case, then we look at a money value.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Peterson. I'm going to go to Trustee Kandarajwan and then Trustee Veluk.
Thank you, Chair Wilson. I also have the same question there as Trustee Peterson, if there's an opportunity for in-kind, or once again, maybe something we'll be looking for next year, because it's just a few months away.
Okay.
Yeah, I was, much like what we spoke about earlier in previous meetings, I think anytime there's a sponsorship request, it would be helpful if we could see a chart of previous sponsorship that was made, maybe even going back 2 or 3 years, and a sum, so that we can just put this all in context. I think when we get these individual requests, it's just really hard for us to just have one-offs like this and make a decision. It would be helpful to have that background, and then I think we'd be more prepared to make a decision. Thank you.
I understood, and that can come to us and certainly has been requested in the past, but also we've had we do have a rule that one organization can apply once. They can't apply twice in the same year, so, and some organizations try that under different banners, but typically we don't have a lot of sponsorship requests. We could probably name them on one hand, and that would be Archway, that would be Big Brothers Big Sisters, Character Abbotsford, sorry?
And Sports Hall.
Sports Hall of Fame, so I think we've covered, and Character Abbotsford, did I say that one?
Yeah,
Anyways,
so it'll be a
5
nice
or
short
fewer.
spreadsheet. It'll be easy to produce.
It'll be
Yes.
very, very
Thank you.
short.
That'd be helpful.
And any of our contracts, just for anybody else that wants to know, because we do have contractual agreements for services delivered, such as ARJA, for instance. Those are found in our Statement of Financial Information in the fall. Trustee Kandarajwan. Oh, Trustee Rai.
Yeah, so I don't see a date here by which we have to say yes.
There
So
isn't
if we
one.
can do I don't want too much work to be done on this, but just a little bit of work to see if there is, how many students go, and if there is like 5 or 6 classes going for some presentations or something, or a dance or something from our.
No classes, it's in the summer.
It's in summer, yeah. Probably, yeah. So how many students go, and what do they offer us in return? Maybe then we might be able to make a decision. So if you don't mind, can we bring it back next board meeting with a little bit of information on, and plus the information that Trustee Rauch wants. So that'll be good too, because I think tomorrow that also we do some sponsorship there at the
Yes.
the Skills Canada.
Skills Canada, yes, we do a luncheon
that,
there.
yeah.
So
it's
we're up
about
to
5,
6.
6 of people, yeah. 5,
yeah.
6. So just to get that information, if you can have something for next meeting in May, and with a little bit of what our students are involved in there.
Mhm.
If you don't find any involvement, just leave it.
And also, before I let you speak, it's also just a matter of, because sometimes it's not always that we're supporting the students per se, we support the community, and that's also a piece of it.
Yeah, I think for the board's consideration, I think the challenge of trying to determine student participation in a summertime event is not easily arrived at. That it might be information that the event organizers could have, but I think the challenge of trying to have staff ask families if they, okay. Just wanted to clarify what the request was.
Maybe I didn't, maybe if somebody can phone the fair manager and ask in the last 5 years, how many of those tickets were validated?
I'm not even sure
Rough
if we still
idea.
send them, but yeah.
If they have that information, they might not. Something very simple, no, not to ask 20,000 kids who went.
We'll see what we can find out. We'll task that to the superintendent.
Yeah.
If that's okay, because
1 or 2
currently-
emails maximum. Let's not do too much work.
I'll make sure he has the email address for Mr. Council.
It's there.
Thank you. So we'll work on that. We have, just before we go into trustee announcements, normally this is a place and space for trustees, but the superintendent does have an announcement that he would like to make. If he remembers about somebody extra at our table at the moment.
Oh, yes, thank you. And thank you for the prompt. Sometimes the closed meetings and public meetings run together. And so we have, the board has appointed Deputy Superintendent Nathan Ning as our acting superintendent, and so we welcome him to the
Secretary
table.
Treasurer.
Sorry.
You just gave away your job.
Yeah, sorry, you're not stepping in for my role, my apologies. Acting Secretary Treasurer for the interim time, and while we complete our process for the search, which is already underway. And so for clarification, and yeah, I'll say that one more time, Acting Secretary Treasurer, I'm not doing myself out of a job here, so thank you.
This is a board decision that is reached, and we need secretary treasurers for our meetings. We can't make decisions without them. It's our pleasure to welcome acting ST, I remember the ST part, Deputy Superintendent Nathan Ning. He'll go by both capacity in this case. And he will be stepping into ST Veluk's very, very large shoes, except that we should also advise that there are some finer points of the position that will still be tasked to finance, et cetera, and there's some division but of activities and responsibilities, but primarily it will be with Dr. Nathan Ning. So thank you for stepping in. So that actually, and we just decided that this was the best place to put it on the agenda today. And trustee announcements are attached. Are there comments, any such things? They are listed for you. No?
I would want, please.
Yeah, trustee
I'm
Wright.
talking too much today, so maybe this is the last time.
It's usually me.
Sorry? You didn't say anything. Today, earlier on, we had a joint workshop with City Council and Board of Education. I think that was a awesome workshop. We really talked about what the two major political organizations do in the community and how we interact with each other. I would encourage us to have more of this and have more deliberations with them so that our community gets the best benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Rai. Anyone else before I fill one in? Go ahead, trustee Rowe.
There was a city prayer breakfast, and I always find that really honoring, when such a large group and the mayor and so on thanks all the first responders and trustees and other city officials and so on for the work that they do. I think it just shows appreciation, and there's such a nice community there. So I thought that was a really nice event.
Thank you. Anyone else? I do want to highlight one in here that I don't want to go unnoticed. Minister Bear, Minister of Education, had requested, and we met with enthusiasm, her request to meet with us to talk with the board and our senior staff about our district and about things that we're proud of. And, just an area, of course, where we always talk about the biggest issue in the province right now, or one of the most significant ones anyways, is recruitment and retention. And this is not a top secret item, but this is something that we brought to her attention about it being a particular discussion in our district, along with some other things that were, like student voice, for instance, some work that we're doing. And just wanted you to be aware that, we are one of the very first. Prior to us, one district had a meeting, and I've spoken to some that are at the end of May, some that are in June, some that are not until September. So we feel very, well, I'm speaking on behalf of the board here, but we do feel very special that we've been able to have that earlier meeting with the minister to kind of set the stage, as well as we did extend an invitation for her to come here and see our district in action. she does not live that far away, so it would be really lovely to have her here. So, anybody else? I think with that, I'm going to move into the question periods, of which there's only one period. Any questions from the gallery? And I will remind you that if you are coming, you come to the mic, you turn it on, you state your name, your affiliation.
Doug Smullen, President, Abbotsford Teachers. Thank you for this question period. Congratulations to Mr. Ning on his double job. Perhaps he should find a union to represent that kind of workload. My observation in the presentation, and I guess my question ultimately is directed to the finances, and seeing a reduction of 36 teachers across the board coming, coupled with an increase in student population, I get concerned that the front-facing people that are dealing with our students every day would be reduced. I think the reference was that the layoffs would be in non-enrolling categories, but some of those non-enrolling categories are servicing the many teachers that we have who are new to profession, and we have multiples of them. And to the issue of a teacher shortage, the new ones that are coming, as well as the uncertifieds, are not trained and need additional supports, which are provided often by these teachers, these non-enrolling teachers. I'm getting to a question.
Please.
So I do want to express my concerns about any reduction in teachers, or the number of teachers, or the funding going towards teachers in our classrooms. And I guess my question, which I likely know the answer, but is the reduction going to be a matter of attrition, or are you forecasting layoff in any way?
Okay, so before I turn it over to the ST, Secretary Treasurer Veluk to answer your question, so you're Doug Smullen with the Abbotsford Teachers Union, for the record.
Yes, I am.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, you're taking this one?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Superintendent's taking this one.
First of all, thank you for your question, and I'm not at all surprised that you would catch that. And so our thinking at this point is that we'll be able to do that through attrition, and also bear in mind there is still some evolving of some of these numbers, and so we want to make this as palatable as possible for the organization and for every aspect of the organization. So that's our plan to approach that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Many, but no. Thank you, though.
No, it's time. Anybody else have any questions?
I'm deferring everything to the new acting.
And we're going to ignore that comment. Are there any questions from the public electronically?
No.
None received. So with that, I call this meeting adjourned, and thank you, everyone. Just a reminder.
Just a reminder that we all stay.
Yeah, we all stay, all board stay.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.